Welcome to the Vintage Athlete Podcast, specially designed for retired athletes. I'm your host, Tara Fortier. I'm a master's level licensed and board certified behavior analyst, yoga and meditation teacher, nutrition coach, and now mom of 2 athletes. But most importantly, I'm just like you, a retired athlete doing life after sport. Whether it's trying new things that you might be bad at, learning how to feed and exercise your post-sport body without kicking your own butt, or figuring out how to fill that giant hole in your life that used to be filled with practices, coaches, teammates, and the adrenaline rush of your sport, I'm going to drop some unconventional knowledge and strategies on you and do it from a place of love and acceptance. We'll tackle solutions from a unique perspective rooted in mindfulness and acceptance and commitment therapy. If you're a retired athlete looking to create a fulfilling and empowered life beyond your sport, this show is for you. This is the Vintage Athlete Podcast, your game plan for life after sports. So lace up for your next adventure and we'll transition, redefine, and evolve together. I want to set the stage for some of the things that we're going to tackle on this podcast and talk about some of the very unique physical, emotional, and mental health needs of former athletes. And all of these needs that I'm going to talk about are worthy of their own episode in the future. So we can dive deep into the why behind them and also the strategies to work through them. But for now, we will at least just talk a little bit about each one. All right, so let's get into it. So number one of the unique needs of former athletes is maintaining physical fitness. So as an athlete, you've trained your body to do amazing and challenging things. And I've found that retired athletes can experience the fitness transitions in different ways. So on one hand, they may want to continue to train at the same competition level of intensity that they did in their competition days, trying to keep their body in athlete condition. Or they may want to maintain their fitness close to what it was, but have no idea how to adjust their workout regimen to accomplish that. Or they might experience a sense of relief at not having to work out anymore. And don't want to set foot inside of a gym. This was me, at least for a little while. I remember when my gymnastics career ended and I entered college, I was often thinking and sometimes saying out loud to people, I just spent most of my life in a gym doing gymnastics and conditioning. And the last thing I want to do right now is work out. I just felt like I needed a break from all of it. So no matter where you fall or fell on this spectrum, the truth is that the level of training that got you to your highest level in your sport was taxing on your body. And guess what? You and your body no longer need this crazy intensive workout schedule and training to live your life outside of sports or after sports. So if maintaining physical fitness is something you value, which in most cases I find is the case, that athletes want to continue to maintain that physical fitness that they worked so hard for all of those years. So if that's something that you value, then it's important to learn a new way to exercise that's more gentle and compassionate on your body. And that can be a major struggle for retired athletes. Plus, the physical changes in the body is one that can be difficult to accept. However, it is normal for the human body to change over time, no matter who you are. It's going to change, especially if you go from an intense training schedule to a more moderate one. But finding a balance of maintaining fitness and finding self-compassion is a journey that we likely need to go on to stay healthy without continuing to kick our own asses in the long term. So that's number one. Number two, muscle memory and intuitive movement. So another unique quality that you possess as a former athlete is that you used to use muscle memory to reliably complete the actions that allowed you to excel in your sport. This is especially true for sports like gymnastics, track and field, running, baseball, etc. Those repetitive motions just became second nature to you, and your body just did them. So this was great when you're competing, but in the long run, you may not have learned how to move in a more intuitive way. which is part of the process of learning to be fully present and mindful in order to build self-awareness and self-compassion, which is really what we need to live a fulfilling life in the future. I remember when I started practicing yoga frequently, and I didn't know how to move my body intuitively. I was just so used to using my muscle memory that I used in gymnastics. And so this was a whole new experience. In yoga, students are often cued to listen to your body and decide what feels good to you. And that was never the case in gymnastics. I moved my body in a way that allowed me to execute a skill with the correct form. It didn't really matter how it felt in my body because the goal was to get the highest potential score. So it was quite a revelation for me to learn how to move in whatever way felt good and made sense at the time. So, number 3, dealing with injuries. So, you may have lingering injuries or pain due to that repetitive stress motions that your sport required. I know I do. And when you're fully active in your sport, injuries were likely treated efficiently and then addressed through intensive rehab and physical therapy until you were ready to come back to full practice. As we retired athletes age, we may start to feel those old injuries again over time. Some of the most common injuries and issues are back pain, shoulder issues, and hip issues. And we all know there are many others that we might be feeling in our life after sports. As a former gymnast, I struggled with low back pain as I got older, which wasn't a specific injury or issue I had as a gymnast. And it really didn't show up until later in life, all that wear and tear on my body that eventually caught up with me. And so yoga for low back pain made a huge difference in helping decrease that pain over time. Number 4, developing a new schedule for health and wellness. So if you were intensely involved in a sport, chances are you had a structured and intensive training and practice schedule, resulting in a very busy and structured life. You probably had a coach or coaches that provided your training as well as direction and guidance on other aspects that affected your performance, such as nutrition, sleep, the equipment that you use, maybe even your clothing, just to name a few. So following all of this guidance probably had a positive impact on your performance because that was the goal of it. But when that level of guidance and structure is no longer there, then you're left to figure out a lot of these things on your own. Things like what kind of training or exercise do you need to maintain that physical fitness? What kind of schedule should you have in order to do this? What are the nutritional and sleep needs of your body with a less intensive training schedule? And then what do you do with your newly found unstructured free time, right? You used to spend all of this time in your sport, practicing, working out, conditioning, and now you've got this new amount of free time. What do you do with that? So this can be a really overwhelming task, especially considering the new needs of your body after sports. So establishing a new routine, a new set of values, and taking committed action towards them is a step in the right direction. Unique need number 5 is difficulty establishing non-sport goals. So athletes tend to be very goal-driven, which is necessary in order to excel in their sport. Being intensely involved in your sport likely came with a pretty clear vision of what you wanted to accomplish. However, goal setting might not be a skill that always easily translates to the rest of your life. So for me, it was a struggle to know what to focus on and how to accomplish it. I needed to figure out what my values were outside of my sport. In my sport, they were very clear. But then outside of that, it became more challenging to use that same skill in other aspects of my life. So it's important to figure out what is truly important to you. What are you willing to do to live according to those values and those things that are very important to you? So to figure this out, the athlete really needs to figure out who they truly are, which is so much more than their sport. And learning to practice mindfulness can really help get this process started. Mindfulness and yoga practices teach people to notice sensations in their body and thoughts in the mind and to accept them without judgment and without letting it define who they are. So it's then that you can really start to discover who you really are without all this noise going on in the background. It was really is part of every aspect of my life. My conversations with my friends often involve gymnastics. My extended family would always ask me, "How's gymnastics going?" whenever we would get together on the holidays. A lot of people in my community knew me as that gymnast, and I loved it because I loved the sport and I loved interacting with people about it. So when I eventually stopped competing in gymnastics, I wasn't that gymnast anymore. So then who was I? So much of my identity was wrapped up in that identity. And this is a big struggle, especially when going off to college and not having my gymnast status to tell people who I was. And I didn't know who I was without it. And now I had this big hole in my life. Does this sound familiar to you? It's something that I think most athletes go through when they stop competing in their sport. And I think it's really important for an athlete to realize that that is not all that you are, right? That being an athlete was not and is not all that you are. If you're so committed to that, you can become closed off to the importance of other parts of your identity and exploring what they are. Research shows that the stronger the athlete identity is in retirement for a former athlete, the more they can struggle with life in retirement. In that time, we need to spend some very intentional time learning about ourselves and what's important to us in our life after sports. So, so I'll ask you this. Do you know what your values are and how to start living those values in your new life? And so that's something that we are going to spend time exploring in this podcast. The last unique need of retired athletes that I want to talk about is grief. It is a completely normal response to experience grief when retiring from a sport because there are significant losses that come with it. So, your identity, the team or the community from your sport, the emotional highs of a win or accomplishing your goal, having that outlet for stress, having the recognition of accomplishment. These are all things that you experienced as an athlete that are no longer going to be there when you retire. So it's no wonder that grief can result from these losses. And how this grief is expressed can vary greatly among different people. But no matter what this looks like, it's important to acknowledge that grief and be willing to experience the process. Many times, athletes become very skilled at holding back and controlling their emotions so that it doesn't affect their performance. And after they retire, the need to control those emotions is no longer there. And we may have a new experience with these emotions. And let's face it, the emotions that we experience are probably ones that are not pleasant, especially ones that are related to that grief and loss. So what can happen is that we start to act in ways that either continue to help us hold back or control these emotions, or in ways that allow us to avoid feeling them even in the first place. So in either case, you can start missing out on important aspects of your life and not living fully according to your values and what's important to you. If you're spending all of this time and energy controlling or avoiding emotions that maybe you feel like aren't pleasant or uncomfortable. So learning how to accept and experience uncomfortable emotions is a skill set that I had to learn as a former athlete. And I know I'm not the only one. This is something that this podcast is going to focus on through strategies from acceptance and commitment therapy, which is commonly known as ACT. Other strategies, including behavior analysis and mindfulness, are the things that help me have that successful journey and find balance in my life after sports. So, as a former athlete, no matter how long it's been since you retired from your sport, all of these things can still be a struggle, and that's okay. You trained your body to do amazing things, And along with that comes a unique set of physical and mental challenges that you may experience once you're no longer active in your sport. In spite of these challenges, you bring a very unique and valuable set of strengths. The ability to manage an intensive and full schedule of life, perseverance to accomplish your fullest potential, and the strength to work through adversity are just a few of the skills that athletes bring with them after their sport. And I see you because I get it. I lived it. And I want to support each and every one of you to continue to use your strengths and assets to build and maintain a meaningful life after sports. As a former athlete and now the mother of two of them, I think we are all deserving of support in the transition into sports retirement through proven and effective strategies. This approach needs to be a holistic system, addressing the whole person, physically, emotionally, and mentally, and is specific to retired athletes and all the unique aspects of retirement that we just talked about. So it is my mission to put that out into the world. So please know that you are so much more than a former athlete, and you have something unique and powerful to put out into the world in your next phase of life. So if you want to get clear on your values in your life after sports, I invite you to sign up for this free 3-day experience that I have called the Vintage Athlete Awakening. And this series is going to take you through some of the exercises that I use to explore our relationships with our body and our mind and what will help you move forward. So to find out more and sign up, you can go to vintageathlete.org, /vintage-athlete-awakening, or you can go through the link in the show notes. And I would also appreciate and love if you would hit that subscribe button so that you can be the best version of yourself in your life after sports. So until next time, keep evolving. You have officially crossed the finish line of this episode of the Vintage Athlete Podcast. Congrats. I hope you're feeling empowered to live your best life after sports. And remember, you are not alone in this journey. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback not only helps improve this podcast, but also helps other retired athletes find our community. Stay connected with me on Instagram at vintage.athlete for daily tips, inspiring stories, and to share your own experiences. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being a part of the Vintage Athlete team. Together, let's continue to find balance, build fitness, and redefine success in this exciting new chapter. I'm Tara Fortier, and I can't wait to connect with you again next time. Until then, keep evolving and keep creating your legacy beyond the game. Take care, and see you next time on the Vintage Athlete Podcast.